Hello and welcome everybody, and welcome to Anabaseios, the 10th Circle. This is the second raid boss in this raid tier. We're starting things off with arguably the hardest mechanic. 3 spread markers will go out on players, and one thing to note is that these spread markers are not like most other spread markers in the game. Any player that stands too close to these spread markers will become tethered to the player with the spread marker. Another thing is that there are small yellow posts on the arena that the players with the spread markers cannot stand too close to. You know you're standing too close to either a player or one of the yellow posts if you see a tether between you and that object. To resolve this, I like to stack all 3 of the spread players in the middle of this central platform, with one furthest north, one in the center, and one on the south side of the platform. Everyone else can feel free to spread away from these 3 players. Once this resolves, there will be some mild damage on the 3 players that were chosen, and everyone's free to collapse for heals. Next up, we'll have a tower soaking mechanic. 6 towers will spawn, in which you must have at least 1 person in each tower, and then 2 things will happen afterward. 1, you'll either have chains appear, and as I like to say, it chains away, meaning you go away from the baited towers. If there is no chains, you're free to stand inside of the tower that you soaked. Afterwards, there will be a raid wide called Ultima that does massive damage and a bleed. Once that's resolved, there will be more towers to soak, 6 of them in total, and they will always be the opposite of what you got the first time. So in this case, this will be the in pattern. You're free to stand inside of the tower you soak. After that, there will be a party stack. Mitigate a little bit. After the party stack, there will be a tank buster that hits several times, so make sure you don't run away too fast. The tanks need to stay for all of the blasts. Next up is Entangling Web. Now, this mechanic is arguably the most interesting, because every single time there is a spread mechanic on the front platforms, you'll notice that 2 bridges will spawn. These 2 bridges are imperative for the following mechanics because they allow more space. When the boss casts Silk Spit, 4 players this time around will be chosen to spread, much like the first time. The 4 players cannot be close to other players or the yellow posts. Luckily, since the boss just made 2 more platforms, you have more room to spread. Once this is done, if you did go to a side platform, you'll want to collapse back in for both heals and also making sure you don't get hit by the Pandaemonium Ray, which will blast to one side of the arena. If you stayed on that side of the arena, you will not have time to get back, so make sure you run back in early. Next up, the boss is going to cast Parted Plumes. I like to stand north for this mechanic and then find out where the AoE originates. Stand adjacent to that tile and move in after the first blast, and then wait. There's another party stack mechanic. Followed by another stack tank buster. Entangling Web is up next, except this time there's a bit of a twist. Only one of the upper platforms will have a large AoE on it, meaning that only one bridge will spawn. In this case, it's the northeast platform, but don't run over there yet. There's a chance the boss will use Pandaemonium Ray again, like he did in this case. If we were to already run over there, we would all be dead. After the Ray cast, he'll use Touchdown. The way you survive Touchdown is to cross whichever bridge spawned. This is why we didn't run there in advance, because he could have hit us with the Ray. But since we waited and just leaned towards the bridge, we were able to make it safely. Next up is another Ultima Raid Wide, which has a very spicy dot, so use mitigation if you have it. Pillar soaks again. There will be 6 total, and we're checking for chains here. So if you see chains, move away. If there's no chains, you can stay inside of the tower. In this case, there are chains, so we move away. Another full party stack. Next up is Harrowing Hell. This is actually massive damage onto the party several times, kind of like Tumults in Titan. So any kind of repeated heals or shields should be used here. You'll also be followed up by a massive knockback. So during this, start inching your way forwards, that way you don't get knocked off the platform. I like to move into that first cube on the northern side of this platform, just to be safe. Parted plumes once again. I like to stand north for this mechanic, find the spot of origin, and then slide into it after the first detonation. Like so. Wicked Step is a tank buster in the form of a tower. So if a tank is dead for whatever reason, somebody can soak the tower to make sure you don't wipe. But that player will die. Pillars mechanic once again. 6 towers will spawn. We're checking for chains here. Chains away. If no chains, you can stay still. We got chains, so we move away. Another cast of Entangling Web. This time, the northeast bridge will once again be activated, but we don't necessarily want to run across it yet, until we know what the boss is doing next. The boss is leading with touchdown this time, so we'll want to cross the bridge to get to safety. Once the touchdown cast is complete, I like to instantly move back into the middle, just in case he uses his ray. A full party stack is up next. Another cast of Silk Spit. This time we have more than 3, so I use the same strategy as earlier, where we use this extra room afforded to us by the bridge. And as you can see, other players did not move away from the yellow towers. That's why their mechanic soft failed. But using the extra room will give you more leeway. After that mechanic was done, we collapsed back to center, so that way that ray didn't hit us, and another use of parted plumes is coming up. We move north again, and we find the point of origin, and slide into the first detonation, like so. At this point, the boss will start repeating mechanics. And to finish things off, we have a shared tank buster. And the final cast being a raid wide with Dot. Thank you for watching my P10 guide for normal mode, and we'll be back next week for the Savage version of the fight. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Later.